tell me more about your beginnings. You worked 10 years for the Aspen Institute here in Romania, then Ashoka, then Global Shapers, Social Innovation Solutions. How did you start in this path? How did you start at Aspen? What was your plan?
It's funny. I had no plan. So, I keep on telling everyone we need a plan, assess the future, probabilities, etc. But many years ago, in 2007, I came back to Romania. I was studying abroad, and I came back because I felt that I can have a role in Romania. But I had no idea what I'm going to do, with whom, etc. And then, sort of by accident, or some people would call it destiny, I'd call it an accident, I got this interview at the Aspen Institute, and they were looking for somebody to run their leadership programs. And I said, why not? And it was sort of a school of life and professional life, but also personal life for me there. You don't really spend 10 years in a place unless it's really good. And then eventually something happened. The miracle of life happened. So one of my daughters was born, my first daughter. So then I decided, I'm going to spend 1 year at home with her. And then that year became 2. So that was my best professional decision. And then, everything just came into place.
So it was 2007?
Yeah, so I started with Aspen in 2007, and then I worked there, leadership programs, meeting a lot of people, then going to other types of positions, working in policy, making large events, etc. And then, after I came back from my dad's holiday, 2 years at home, with Corina Murafa, we kicked off the Ashoka office in Romania, and that gave me another type of school, if you like, that helped me understand more about impact, social impact, all the way to social investment, and then networks of people that actually change the world for real, not just itsy bitsy tiny parts of it, but also at global level.
How was the country that you found in 2007, coming back from abroad after studying?
It was very hopeful because we had just entered the European Union. There was a lot of hope in the air, but slowly, I think hope is never and should never be constant or happiness. Right? It's ups and downs, and I think we have had some downs in Romania, but I've found it hopeful, and I found even the beginnings of what is now the startup ecosystem. It was there, it was functional. We didn't really have the big successes or the unicorns, but we did have a young generation of people that also studied abroad, I think, a lot of them, but also a feeling of we can also do it here, which didn't really happen before that.
I know that you also worked with the World Economic Forum in the Bucharest hub. Your official role was a global shaper.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this, because you mentioned Corina Murafa and people that change the world in the end. So what's, in your opinion, a shaper, and where do we find them here in Romania?
So, for a bit of a context, the Global Shapers community is a community that the World Economic Forum funded many years ago. Also funded. And still funds. And together with some friends, we started the Bucharest hub in 2013, so it's 10 years already. What a shaper is in the vision of us, but also in the vision of the World Economic Forum, is a young person that looks ahead, but also tries to create and implements local solutions that have a global perspective, that can be replicated or adapted or learned from around the world. And we have seen that happening, and we've learned tremendously from colleagues all the way from Osaka to Lima, and from Anchorage, Alaska to Nairobi. So we have had the amazing opportunity to actually meet people from everywhere in the world, and to actually understand, probably for me, but also for others, for the first time in our lives, that challenges are almost identical. Of course, there's a lot of difference. What happens in Kinshasa is very different than what happens in Cork in Ireland. but overall the challenges that young people face are not that different. And the solutions are a bit different, but they follow similar principles, if you like.
What are the challenges of young people trying to?
I think there's a lot of challenge that comes from the perception of how the grown-ups look at young people, and this is valid, almost even exacerbated in some cultures. Second of all, even in high developed countries or super educated or countries like Finland or Sweden, we still see a lack of real cooperation among young people. So school doesn't apparently teach us that well. And when you look at a country like Romania or Colombia, it doesn't really produce cooperation and collaboration. And startups need that a lot. I mean, you do have this amazing idea, right? And then a challenge that I've seen everywhere in the world, and also working with startups in Central and Eastern Europe for many years, is that the ambitions are actually very small, which is okay when you're 20 or 21, but they remain small even when you're 30. So I think this is one of the many reasons we don't have big companies in Romania, because we think very locally, very small, and we're like, I'm not going to sell necessarily somewhere else. And this is valid in other countries as well.
Is it a cultural thing, this thinking of, I'm going to succeed on a small level, I'm going to be happy while succeeding here in Romania or Colombia or, I don't know, other Eastern European country, for example, or it's something that can be taught?
I think it's something that can be taught, and I think it's something that is changing. So when I, entered the job market, which was more than 15 years ago, the startup ecosystem was very immature at the beginning. If you would talk to people about social entrepreneurship, they would look at you very weird, right? Or tech startups, deep tech startups. Even now in Romania, when you talk about deep tech, we don't have really any deep tech properly. But it is changing because there's new generations of startups that come. There's new funds, so we didn't really have that much EU funding or other types of funding. The venture capital ecosystem and the investment ecosystem has really changed in the past 4 to 5 years, not more. And let's not forget, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, we didn't really have an investment ecosystem in Romania. We had some business angels, and we know them by heart probably. But we didn't really have the gap binders of Romania or the Rocas or any other, or the banks that actually do that as well. So we are in a very different place now, not as accelerated as I imagined.
How did you start Social Innovation Solutions, and what was the role you envisioned for the organization? What is the role of it today?
Yeah. So at the beginning, my partner Juana founded this as a company with a role to bring more innovation and also social innovation in the way businesses do their work. And a couple of years later, I stepped in and then founded this NGO, which has the same name, and then it merged together completely now as one entity, if you like. And the purpose sort of initially was to support the startup ecosystem. So this was the role that we said, this is what we want to do. And then slowly we realized that one of the things that we need to put more or push for, in Romania at least, was this training of the muscle called looking into the future. We felt like we can be sort of like a gym or like coaches for people that want and need to understand more about how the future might look like, from a technology perspective, from a social perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, etc. So our vision and role sort of changed, and now it's sort of matured in the past 3 to 4 years, when we actually grew almost 5 times in 1 year, which is cool, but complicated, even for an NGO or even for a startup, if you want. Mm-hmm. So we got from 3 to 15 people in about 1 year. And that changed also the perspective of the role. And now the role as an organization that supports sustainable solutions for a sustainable future. And this means a lot of things. Right? We want to support people understand the future better, etc. But in the end, it is about finding those solutions that are sustainable, that lead to a future for Romania and the region that is significantly more sustainable than what we have now.
What's the difference between social impact startup and a startup that doesn't have those two words?
We still have, let's put it like eras. Like we have pre-impact, impact and post-impact. In the pre-impact era, which was up to, let's say, 2020, 18, 17, 20, that we had a clear distinction and almost like a niche of very weird people doing social impact or social economy. But in particular, social impact startups, you needed to explain to people what this is. Everybody was like, so you're like doing good, but also doing money. Wow, amazing. And then I think now we're in the impact sort of era in which these social impact businesses or businesses with a social impact, which is two different things, are sort of beginning to show that you can actually really have a return on investment that is measurable, clear, defined, and big or bigger than traditional businesses. We see this because finally, in these 2-3 years, we have also global data that shows that the social investments have similar, if not higher, yields than traditional investments. So we have the proof, we have the use cases, and we have the people that say, I don't just want to sell detergent to make money, or socks, or IT services. I want to make what I make also to have an impact. And then we have the next era, which is post-impact, which maybe will come in the next years, hopefully, which I think will be an era in which businesses will not be seen as social impact or classic normal, because I've seen that. I've heard that as well. Everyone will actually have an impact component.
If you were to explain right now in the impact era you mentioned, the difference between a startup that doesn't have a social impact component in its core, in its vision.
So two things that what will happen in the next 3 to 5 years maximum is that all companies will need to show what their social and environmental impact is. This is a pressure that will come from capital, traditional capital, which is banks, or grants, or investments. Second, this will come from consumers. More and more consumers, not necessarily in Romania, but more and more consumers will ask to understand if you're really green. And then third, you have regulation that kicks in. So this difference that you're talking about, I think it's more about intention, or what intentionality as a founder or as a group you have. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to start a business to solve a social challenge at all. It's not about that. But it is about looking into what you do and trying to understand what is the actual social impact that you have. You might say that some businesses have no social impact. But it's not really like that. Even an IT company, as somebody that does, I don't know, let's just look around. These chairs, this armchair. You might say the business that makes these chairs has no social impact. What are we talking about? But social impact is not just about people or a very leftist perspective. It's about everything, including the environment. So this is not leather, of course, but this is material that has had a negative environmental impact, but also a social impact. The wood, I think it's wood. No? It's plastic, okay, or metal, or it doesn't matter, right? So everything is connected to social impact in the end. And more we see this happening.
Because you mentioned that the organization grew exponentially. What are the main activities right now for you? And talking about also the future for social innovation solutions.
So now we have three types of activities. The first one is the educational activities. And this is somewhere that we focus a lot on startups again, maybe a bit more mature startups, also as we matured as an organization. So we don't really do early stage startups. And we do more and more SMEs. So it's still startups, but more mature, right? Including multi-million dollar businesses in Romania. So through the Sustainability Academy, for example, this is an e-learning platform for SMEs and other interested parties in what sustainability is and what it means for your business and why you need to have this or to really know this if you want to survive into the future. And for me, sustainability is like digitalization about 20 years ago. There were some people that said, yeah, but paper is what matters. There's some people, a lot of people that say sustainability is just a trend that will pass. It will not. It is what we need to embed in our businesses. So this is why we do the Sustainability Academy. We have some other programs like Transformator, which supports SMEs and NGOs to develop sustainability strategies and put them in practice. And then Games of Science, which is something that is more related to supporting researchers, young researchers, PhDs, postdoc, to better showcase their research. And then the second group of activities is the conversation, because we were talking earlier about talking to each other, and we don't really talk to each other that much, or we're not really listening. So that's why we created conversation platforms like Future Summit, where we talk about the future, sustainable futures, where we talk about the SDGs. And the biggest one is Climate Change Summit, which just happened, had its second edition in October 2023. We doubled the amount of people that watched this. So last year we had about 350,000 people watching a day. This year we had 850,000 people from around the world that watched this. So that shows that you can create brands in Romania that have a global impact or reach, plus bringing all the stakeholders together. And then the third type of activity is more similar to a research company or a think tank, where we actually create content. We're now launching a report on sustainable agriculture, another one on the future of SMEs in Romania by 2028, and many others.
How did this, let's call it vertical, of sustainability and social impact startups, that's gonna be bigger and bigger, evolved in Romania from the perspective of companies, of startups? Because sometimes, some years ago, we heard about, programs, accelerators that have had troubles finding these companies.
Let's be very frank, and this is for everyone watching. All incubators and accelerators in Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Greece, where we also operate, and many other countries, have challenges finding participants. We have a significant problem that we didn't really have 10 years ago or 8 years ago in finding people that put time in learning. I'm not sure why this happens. Maybe this is another episode. So everyone has challenges in finding that. Second, how this evolved, or how the impact ecosystem evolved, there's sort of three strings, if you like. The first one is the classical social economy string, which is about cooperatives, businesses that employ people with disabilities, businesses that are highly related to lessening environmental impact. Then you have these startups that have a social mission, and like we used to run for many years in Romania, Social Impact Award, where we supported and funded tens of young startups at the beginning. And then we have a third string, which I think is going to be the predominant one, where you have businesses that don't really know that what they're doing is impact or sustainable, but they just do it because this is the way forward. I mean, look at some of the startups that you also present in startup.ro and other platforms that you have, Green Startup. They're naturally inclined. So we do see, it's not everyone doing it, but it's a small, I would call it small majority. It's not a small minority, it's big, it's a small majority. So we will reach that, that top, and eventually I think more and more startups will look at social issues and environmental issues carefully.
Some studies say that the younger generation is way more interested in sustainability and basically future-proofing the planet, the world, than we were. Do you see this in the younger generation in Romania having a different approach to the future?
Yeah. So in 2023, we had, I think, about 60 startups in the Future Makers Incubator, which were young, whatever young might mean these days, right? So they were also 20, but also 28, so it's a mix. And not just from Romania, again, we had 8 countries there. And be it Greece or Bulgaria or Serbia or Romania or even Ukraine back in the days, you see, I see at least, a change in the way young people look at their role in society and what their businesses should do. A lot of them think, and more of them should think, in terms of profit, first of all. So it's really difficult to create change without money. Profit is the quintessence, is the basis of a business and needs to be there. But sustainable profit is the way it should be sort of made and the purpose of it. So I'm very hopeful in the next generations. We worked a lot with high school young entrepreneurs, let's say, and it is mesmerizing what comes. The question is, will the market be able to keep them here? And I'm not sure about that.
Why?
It's easier than ever to open a business in a digital realm, right? It's getting easier and easier to move to other countries or cities, because we're not just talking about moving to another country. People don't move to other countries, they move to better ecosystems, which can be in Wrocław, in Poland, it can be in Sofia. I know some Romanians that move to Sofia because the startup ecosystem there is more interesting than what we have now. Or you can go to Vienna, Porto, Berlin, etc. So the main challenge as we all of us as an ecosystem have for the next years is to try to create not necessarily easier ecosystems, but ecosystems in which you can grow your business as easy as you would do it in Poland or in Croatia or in, I don't know, France.
You mentioned investors and the interest from them in the social impact startups and also financing from the EU. But how do you see this investment ecosystem right now from a sustainable point of view? Because it seems that the investments that we hear of are not in social impact startups.
Absolutely.
So are not communicated as such.
I think Romania is again at the beginning of the investment of its investment ecosystem, right? Most investments are done in tech or pure tech businesses that have little to no, at least communicated impact role, let's say. But in the same time, this is a tremendous help to the ecosystem in itself because this is the only way it can grow. Impact ventures in Romania, but also in our region, are very at the beginning of the journey, let's say. We cannot really compare ourselves to Germany or the Netherlands or even the Czech Republic or others. We're still far away from that. But the speed is higher than some people, let's say, expected from Romania. Also, something else that is happening, because we have these startups in the tech industry that gain traction, that become, not just get investment, but also make money out of that investment. A lot of these people are actually moving away from the pure tech business and say, I want to do something else. I want to go into green mobility. I want to go into agriculture. Also because it's an opportunity, but also because it might mean more for the future. It's amazing if we do IT products, but that will not really save the world to some extent. So we need startups that focus more on well-being and healthcare, that focus on food and agriculture, that help us breathe better, that bring climate solutions, etc. Technology is an enabler, but if technology or tech businesses are the purpose, I think we got it wrong in the next 20 years.
Comparing 2007 Romania to 2023 Romania, what are the common things that are still here? And maybe they shouldn't be here.
People don't really go into politics. This is one. We had a bit of an uptake, but that went away. I think there's still, in many of us, a feeling that we are not good enough to grow outside of the country. First. Second, there is a strong perception that I still feel about ourselves as being even sometimes too good to learn more or to constantly learn. So maybe not as much as 2007 or early 2000s, but I see a lot of business people or civic people even, or especially more conservative people in the NGO world that sort of don't understand that they always need to learn. We need to learn every day, not every day, but every year, have learning experiences. But there's also amazing models that change that, like what the Stefan brothers are doing with Autonom, with this culture of reading and learning, what some business schools are doing, like BISM or the Entrepreneurship Academy to some extent, and accelerators and programs like our own, that we work with people in their 40s that have businesses that have 300, 400, 500 employees, and they say, I reached that age in which I don't know what to do next. I can run a multi-million-dollar business or euro, but how do I become more sustainable? How do I put social equity in the picture? How do I get green or sustainable investments? So we're getting there.
You mentioned the fact that one of the bad things is that young people don't want to enter politics. Yeah. They wanted to ask you about leaders, because that was the subject of our conversation earlier. How do you tackle this challenge, let's say for a startup founder? You are 25, 30 years old. You have some success, and you can have a lot of success, yeah. Why would you enter in politics, or I don't know, let's call it just having an impact in society rather than just doing business?
I would need a magic wand to find a great answer to that, but I have an acceptable answer. So first thing is that the young people that I see either going into politics or local elections, local politics, or more of an impact and less of more proactive and less reactive, is that it's a lot to do with personal trauma. It can be the physical traumas that some of us have, or when things are not really working. Even if we have private healthcare, private education, amazing buildings, etc., we still live in the same country with the same problems, which are, and again, healthcare, education, corruption, public infrastructure, let's call it, climate or pollution. So when these become so difficult to handle, even at a personal anxiety level, a lot of them say, I've had enough, I need to do something. And just having a business that has a profit and employs people, for a lot of them or us, it's not really enough. So they say, I want to do more. Plus, every once in a while, every ecosystem or country or society has a shock, like we had with Collective, like we had with other things. So I think when we look into the next years and what are the next shocks might be, or what are the most probable shocks, I think we will see new waves of people doing more, if you like, from the business sector, from the civic sector, or from the political sector.
what do you expect, talking about public authorities, what do you expect from them in order to help the business ecosystem grow? And especially we're talking here about startups, so social impact startups and so forth.
Any startups.
Yeah.
So we are lucky, maybe, or we worked a lot to have some luck, in that we do work with the government quite a lot, including some of our programs like the Sustainability Academy or Transformator, and especially Climate Change Summit. We work closely with the government, the Chancellery, the Prime Minister, Ministry of Economy, etc., digitalization, so environment, plus local authorities. So there is openness, quite a lot. The challenge that I think we have is, first of all, a trust challenge, second of all, a professionalization challenge, and then third of all, a at least medium-term commitment challenge. Because governments change quite often, therefore power and the people you talk to change often, that leads to less trust, that leads to a sense that there's not even real professionals at the table, on sometimes both sides, but mainly in the government side. So we have had, let's just pick the last 5 years, we've had, 6, 7 governments? I don't even remember. Right. As a business community, like, I don't know, Concordia, the Romanian business leaders, etc. FIC, who do you talk to? If once every 6, 8 months there's a new minister, it's a bit difficult. That's why I think businesses, the startup ecosystem, and even the impact ecosystem, or in particular the impact ecosystem, needs to also connect more with the local representatives, let's say, elected. Mayors play and will play a significant role in how business is done, but also how impact is done. And I don't think we actually talk that much with them, because at least they stay there for 4 years. At least we have somebody to talk to every month or every year. But in the same time, to conclude, I think what the governments have been doing in the past years in bringing funds to the country, also through the classical PNRR, right? But other means has helped the ecosystem grow. I am not sure if free money is what we need, but it has helped the ecosystem grow.
From a regional perspective, what do you think is Romania in the region? Not from a political point of view, but from a business point of view. Where do we stand? What are we?
I would say it's not the big brother, it's the big sister. This is the feeling that I got as we have the Future Makers Incubator for 3 years in 8 countries in the region. We're now scaling Transformator and Sustainability Academy in other countries, so we have had significant conversations with them, investors, mayors, incubators, everyone. Right? And we, because we're also big, but also because of the IT, again, ecosystem and the investments it costs, not as big as Poland, but the next in line, we are seen as not a big brother, but a big sister. So these countries look at Romania with a bit of a, wow, Romania, cool. That doesn't mean that they actually know what's happening here. It doesn't really mean that they're interested. Why? Because we are not seen as a destination market, either for getting investments or selling products. So most of us are still looking on the other side, either on the other side of the mountains, but mostly on the other side of the ocean. So I think we are still, I think we're very important for the, but more from a comparative perspective, not because they would like to do stuff with us.
Where do you think we are heading as a country in let's say in the next 5 to 10 years? Where are we heading and where should we head?
So I think we are heading into more futures. As a foresight expert and as a futurist, I tend not to talk about one future. I think there's more futures where we are heading. I think a lot will be decided next year in 2024 when it comes to elections. I think this will be determinant for many stakeholders in the country. So if we take a route of having something similar that we've had in the past 5 years, so the next 5 years, if the next 5 years are similar to the past 5 years, which is ups and downs, many governments, changes, fiscal changes, etc., it's not necessarily a bad future. It's an acceptable future. Also because we have large amounts of money that are designed for startups entering the country. There's this new wave or old wave of sustainability. So it's a mini positive future. In the same time, there is no, as Kant said, there is no eternal peace. So what happens to the future of Romania is not just in our hands, it's also in the hands of the neighbors that we have. So how the current geopolitical situation at European and global level changes, or how the US-China trade relations evolve or dissolve, matters a lot to where Romania is heading, because we are highly dependent on what happens at European level and even at global level. So we need to prepare for the worst and embrace the best, if you like. What Romania can do, I think, or what I hoped it does, or the startup ecosystem, is that it under-promises and over-delivers. I would like to say that.